I no. Hello. I am happy to see that people are actually here today. Hello and welcome everybody. Today we're gonna be talking about. Let me change the title of the stream. It's part 3, not part 2. Oh, did I not notice that until now? But regardless, welcome everybody. Today we're gonna be going over the Dark Archive and going over the second half of all of the case files. I don't know why that took me so long to remember what they were called, but the case files that we're going to be covering today are the Cults case file, the Curse and Pacts case file, the Temporal Anomalies case file, and finally Mindscapes. Mindscapes are fun. If there's anything wrong with the audio, let me know. It's been a while since I streamed, and sometimes my my setup just doesn't like working. So if the music's too loud, if I'm too quiet, just please let me know. I will adjust things as I hear if they're bad. So regardless, let's get into cults. Why don't we? Because good lord, there's a lot of stuff in the second half of the case files. Like, the second half of the case files are absolutely loaded with archetypes and spells and everything. So first, we get to talk about a very fun archetype that God I want to play, and it's also very rare for a very good reason, and that is Living Vessel. Living Vessels are people that invite a entity into their body as some kind of odd ritual. It could have been that you were dying and this entity needed a body to be stored inside of, so it saved your life. Or you could have tried to offer it up as some kind of mutual exchange, or you could be keeping it within you to try and seal it to keep it from getting out. There's a lot of different ways that you can actually get use out of this, but it's really fun. Also, something that they pointed out here is that you might be able to take a Pact feat from the Pact Binder archetype, which I believe is the which we'll be talking about in a bit. It's in the next case file, but basically there are pacts that revolve around Fae. So if you have a Fae creature sealed inside of you from the Living Vessel, it makes sense to be able to take the pact that deals with Fae or the pact that deals with devils, etc. So basically, you get access to some additional feats. So let's talk about the dedication itself, because it's a long one. So basically, you have something sealed inside of you, and you and your GM have to work out what is actually in you. In general, the options that this book actually has specific feats for is some kind of Fae, I believe some kind of devil, or demon, not devil, they're distinct, or like aberration. Basically, do you have Fae, a demon, or some weird-ass tentacle monster? Regardless, once a day, you have to spend an hour every day keeping that entity under control and kind of giving them a bit of what they want, or otherwise you take a -1 penalty on will saves because you're constantly fighting against something inside of your body that's probably stronger than you. So better spend that hour each day keeping them under control. Now, your GM determines what you have to do to keep them under control. It could be something that you don't understand the significance of, or it could be something really fucked up, like keeping a demon under control so it doesn't want to try and take over your body might involve a little bit of bloodshed. So just try and reach a reasonable accord with your GM for something that you can actually do every day, and that also won't get you thrown in prison if anyone catches you doing it. Also, if you don't take care of your entity for a full week, you become doomed 1. And you can't remove this condition until you allow the entity to take full possession of your body for 24 hours straight, during which it does whatever the hell it wants. So please, at least once a week, give your deity what it wants so it doesn't get a full day. The actual interesting and kind of mechanical element is that you get the entity's resurgence reaction, which is a reaction that can trigger whenever you would be reduced to 0 hit points, but not immediately wiped off the map. And instead of actually falling unconscious, instead you get puppeted as your entity takes control of your body. You actually go to 1 hit point instead of 0, and you gain temporary hit points equal to your level plus your key ability modifier that lasts for 1 minute. However, the entity is control, not you. And this lasts for 1 minute or until you fall unconscious, whichever happens first. And while the entity is controlled, you get a +1 status bonus to all attack rolls and damage rolls, and the GM actually controls what you do, especially role-playing what you do. Now, the GM has like final say, but they could just say, I don't know how to play your character, so you take over, but I'm going to tell you if what you're doing is allowed or what the entity would want to do. Because let's be real here, the GM is not going to know how to play your character better than you do. But that +1 status bonus is very good, because that applies to spell attack rolls, that applies to weapon attack rolls, spell damage, spell damage, weapon damage, all types. This is useful for basically everyone. Although I hope that it isn't an actual strategy of you to get knocked down to 0 hit points during fights. This is a good, like, second form. I don't know exactly how I stop myself from dying all the times, but like, this is very good for your big brother coming over when you can't beat a level and then taking the controller and then winning. Yeah, my voice feels a lot better since it's been like a week since I streamed last. Yeah. But yeah, this is honestly super good, especially considering that evil entities and no entities are generally going to be trying to swap sides or anything. They're generally going to be fighting in the best interest of the host. Just how exactly they're fighting is up to the GM. Entity's strike is level 4 feet. You get an unarmed attack of your choice, of its type for the entity. So that's like bludgeoning damage if it's a tentacle monster. You maybe grow claws, or you get some other weird ability from a fae, or horns. That's the example that they gave. So this unarmed attack is obviously just has brawling, magical, and finesse. So this can't be separated from you. It is separate, presumably, from your hands, or it can be separated from your hands. I recommend picking one that you don't have to use a hand to use, so that way you can have both of your hands be free and then still have an attack available. This isn't like super strong, but it's fun. Also, I believe it might okay, there is an upgrade later on, but it's a fun feat. Entity Strike is not a super powerful feat, but it's very fun, because this is the only way that I know of to get a permanent tentacle on a character. So if this is the archetype for nobody trusting you with a goddamn thing. Okay, so moving on to Tap Vitality. Level 6, once per day for an action, you can heal yourself by tapping into your entity's life force, because again, they're way bigger. Oh yeah, and that's a good point, that you don't become wounded even though you were kind of knocked to 0. It's just a little bit risky because you're still at low health, but you can still get healed and your entity is still taking over you during entity's resurgence. So basically, if you get knocked down to 0 and someone has battle medicine, they should really heal you up because you're actually more effective now. Although they should not accept legal responsibility for what you're about to do to the poor sons of bitches who knocked you down. Because demons don't care about ethics violations or war crimes. But regardless, Tap Vitality, you recover a number of hit points equal to 4 times your level, which is a stupid amount. But each time that you use Tap Vitality, you sort of become a bit more of your entity and personality and instincts. Until the next time you spend an hour to bring, of course, your mind under control. So this is pretty good. Like, that's a stupid amount of healing. But it takes an hour to get rid of. But that downside depends a lot on our roleplay. So try not to be too much of an asshole whenever a demon starts entering your mind, or a weird tentacle monster, or a fae thing. Just don't be too much of a dick. But you also have justification to be a dick. So that's fun. Or alternatively, you could just pick one specific trait of your character's personality that gets like boosted up whenever you use tap vitality. So if you have a rage demon sealed inside of you and you tap into it, then whenever your personality starts getting corrupted a little bit, you just become a lot more angry, you become a lot more violent, and maybe normally you play a knight or a paladin or some character that kills people, but kills people cleanly, and then, I don't know, the demon starts getting a little bit more of a hold on you, and then you start describing your kills like you're a barbarian. Regardless, level 8 is when there are 3 different level 8 feats that depend on what you have sealed within you. Your GM can totally come up with a different thing that is sealed inside of you, but they should probably give you another level 8 feat. So if your thing sealed inside of you is in fact a demon, for one action, you can take this feat and you can spread the corruption that's sealed inside of you. So until the beginning of your next turn, you and all of your weapons are covered in toxic sludge. So your melee strikes deal an additional 1d6 poison damage each time someone hits you or just touches you. They take 1d6 poison damage. Also, this increases by 1d6 at level 14 and level 20. This is pretty good. A lot of enemies are actually immune to poison. But hey, it's additional damage. You can do this pretty frequently. Not bad. Especially because if any spellcaster wants to touch you to actually apply touch spells, they get damaged. If you're fighting undead, this is garbage. Like if the main things you're fighting in your campaign are undead, or demons, or other weird things that are immune to poison, this is not good. If you're fighting mostly people, this is very good. Phase Trickery, you can spend 2 actions once per hour, and you cast Mirror Image. So, yeah, Mirror Image isn't as absurdly good as it was in previous editions of Pathfinder, but it's still really good, and it's an amazing defensive spell. So, yeah, this is just good because it means that everyone can get access to a mirror image once an hour. Not gonna turn that down. Warped Construction is what you can take if you have a weird aberration or thing from beyond the stars. So, while you have a foe grabbed or restrained, oh, that's a good idea with the sealed vessel. I mean, I feel like you can just make so many different cool types of characters with this archetype. Like, God, I want to play this archetype so bad, but the next AP I'm playing is Outlaws of Alkenstar, and this does not fit with the theming. I'm waiting for another kind of more magic, weird, creepy campaign to play a living vessel. But, regardless, what this does is you can spend an action while you have someone grabbed or restrained, and a bunch of tentacles and tendrils shoot out from your body and crush your foe and just fuck it up. So your grabbed or restrained creature takes bludgeoning damage equal to your level and mental damage equal to your highest ability score, or mental ability score modifier. And they get a will save that is a basic will save versus both types of damage. So yeah, this is really good if you're a grappler, like absurdly good if you're a grappler. Most effects that deal damage to the people that you're grappling, forgetting what the monk feat is called, but it deals strength damage. They literally just damage equal to your strength modifier to whoever you grapple. Your level is guaranteed all but guaranteed by level 8. No, it is literally guaranteed by level 8 that your level is higher than your strength modifier. This is just a really good way of messing someone up. And also, I'm going to point out, this doesn't have the attack trait. It doesn't have the flourish trait. If you grab someone with action 1, you can use this for your other 2 actions. And if they don't break out, you can spend all 3 actions next turn doing this to them. That's pretty good. Vessel's Form is the final feat in this archetype, and it's fun. So once a day, for 2 actions, you combine your form with the entity within you, taking a weird hybrid form to temporarily boost your abilities. So for 1 minute, you become large-sized with a 10-foot reach, get a +2 status bonus on attack and damage rolls, and a +1 status bonus on all saves versus spells. And if you use Entity's Resurgence, so you get knocked to 0 while in Vessel's Form, the bonuses to attack and damage increase to +3. That's really good. Also, if you have Entity's Strike, which gives you, a natural attack, the damage die increases from 1d6 to 1d8. You also get 40 temporary hit points and a fly speed. This is so good for, a second form or, stage 2 power-up. It's so good. And also, very good for GMs who want to give, oh, well, I want a cult leader to be kind of special. Just steal this. Just steal this entire archetype and give them as, monster abilities to NPCs. But that is the entire archetype. It's honestly a really simple one, as in it doesn't have many feats. But God, I want to see more of this archetype in other books. If they ever put out a book on the Outer Planes, just give us 3 more, if you're gonna put out something that details more on Aeons, give us an option feats for living vessels that have Aeons filled in, put in them. It's so easy to make additional feats for this archetype for different types of outsiders. I just want to see more of that shit. Regardless, we can move on to the apocryphal domain spells because we're in cults. So cults have weird divine magic, and that comes with weird domain spells. So basically, these are all rare domain spells that you could get instead of the normal domain that you get from things like being a cloistered cleric or domain initiate or all that stuff. So basically, these are alternate spells. I'm not going to be comparing them to the original domain spells because I'm going to be real with you guys, I don't know those very well. So I'm not going to try and compare them. I'm just going to be judging these on their own merit. Although I will say, I don't think Cinder Gaze is as good as the base Flame domain spell because... Or I might be thinking of that from the perspective of a Magus player who really likes spell attack roll spells. Regardless, let's get into it. So Cinder Gaze is a replacement for the Fire level 1 focus spell. Oof. So you gaze into flames for a minute, and you actually have to have a fire, but it can be of any size. You can literally light a match or a candle and use this spell. You don't need a bonfire. Or you could just make a bonfire anyway and try and convince your party that you actually do need to burn down the house to cast your level 1 focus spell. But once you spend a minute gazing into the fire and trying to read the future, you roll a d4. And this lasts for 10 minutes or until it's used. And also once you cast it, you can't cast again for 10 minutes. If you roll a 1 on that d4, you get a +2 status bonus to your next initiative roll. That's pretty good. I mean, who doesn't love more initiative? If you roll a 2, the next time you take damage, you get temporary hit points, equal to 1 plus your spellcasting ability modifier, which is a very bad amount of temporary hit points. That's just garbage. It really just is not much HP. Vivid Insight is what you get if you roll a 3, and the next time you attempt a check to recall knowledge, you roll twice to take the better. I mean, if you are a character that has put some skill increases, or will be putting skill increases into skills that can be used to recall knowledge, that's really nice. And also, good fortune is what you get if you roll a 4, and the next time that you attempt a saving throw, you roll twice to take the better. That's probably the best one out of the entire selection. And I believe, yes, this can get heightened, so every level that this gets heightened, you increase the number of temporary hit points from new life by 2. It's still not a good amount of temporary HP. But it's better. Honestly, 3 of 4 of these are very good. And if you're intending to take the Cinder Gaze spell at all, you really should be trying to have at least you should have skills that are good for recalling knowledge, so you can actually make the most out of Vivid Insight. So really, 3 out of 4 good things for spending a focus point isn't bad. But it isn't the buttload of damage the normal Fire Domain spell is. Euphoric Renewal. 2 actions, it lasts for 10 minutes. This is the Death Domain spell. It is the 4th level Death Domain focus spell. So you view death as not an ending, but a beginning. So each time that you get the dying condition and then regain consciousness while under the effects of Euphoric Renewal, you're quickened until your next turn. You can only use this to stand. You get a +1 bonus to saves for a minute, and you get 8 temporary hit points that last for 1 minute. And every level that this gets heightened, the number of temporary hit points increases by 2. This is not very good, because you cast 2 spells to allow you to basically stand up better. Now, okay, to get an effect out of the spell, you must get the dying condition. That's the bad part, because you can't always guarantee that someone is going to be able to heal you and get you up off the floor. Generally, getting the dying condition is not the best combat strategy. Like, the actual bonus to all saves, that's not bad at all. The problem is what you have to do to get that bonus to saves. So, Frenzied Revelry is the Indulgence level 1 focus spell, or alternate level 1 focus spell. So for 2 actions, you create a 5-foot emanation that lasts for 1 minute. And it targets everyone in the area, or rather, you and all your allies in the area. So you and your allies get a +1 status bonus to saving throws against mental effects while you're in the area, and everyone benefiting from this bonus critically succeeds on a saving throw against an enemy's mental effect, or whenever someone critically succeeds against a mental effect. The Revelry increases, granting a +1 status bonus to attack and damage for 1 round. Also, you do this by causing all of your friends around you to go into an infectious frenzy, dancing and howling. Some people might not want their characters to do that in combat if they're going for the, strong but silent type of character. But regardless, at 4th level, this gets heightened up to 10 feet, and the status bonus to saves is +2. And at level 7, it gets heightened to a 15-foot emanation, and the status bonus is +3. Well, I can definitely see the flavor of this working for particular characters, not necessarily everyone, but some characters are going to love this, and some parties basically do this anyway. The actual mechanical effects are amazing. At 7th level, spending a focus point to give everyone within 15 feet, or not level. Once you can cast 7th level spells, spending a focus point to give everyone within 15 feet a +3 status bonus on mental effects. That's really good. Especially if you're fighting a lot of enemies that like to cast mental spells, which a lot do. Mental spells are really rough. Ooh. Alright. So, Hollow Heart is the Ambition level 1 focus spell, or alternate level 1 focus spell. You stoke one creature within 30 feet's ambition beyond reason, until it basically doesn't believe anyone can actually help them anymore. So they make a will save. If they critically succeed, nothing happens. If they succeed, they treat no creatures as allies for 1 round. And if they fail, then they treat no creatures as allies for 3 rounds. And if they critically fail, it's exactly the same as a failure, except they're also frightened 1, because they realize nobody in the world can help them. Well, this is actually rad. The 2 situations wherein I see this being useful is if you're fighting a creature that has sneak attack. They want to get flanking there. That'll drastically increase their effectiveness. If they don't treat anyone as an ally, they can't flank. But the other situation where this is useful is this is an amazing anti-caster spell. Because if there's a divine caster that just so happens to be, I don't know, tossing out healing effects or buff spells in the back, you can cast Hollow Heart on them, and then they don't treat any of their allies as allies, so they're not going to be casting heal spells or buff spells, or, I don't know, maybe they won't be so concerned about casting a fireball on them. Like, they don't treat them as enemies, but they're not allies. So, if they get hit by the fireball that hits the enemies, so be it. Honestly, yeah, this is a fun anti-caster focus spell. And in certain situations where you're dealing with people who are trying to get flankings, not flankings, flanks off, this is honestly very fun. Isolation is a level 4 alternate darkness focus spell. So you select 1 creature and they get a will save. You summon tangible manifestations of loneliness to cloak them from view. They get a will save. If they crit succeed, nothing happens. If they succeed, they become invisible, but only to their allies. So their allies can't see them anymore. Any creature that is not allied with the target can see them normally. And see invisibility allows an ally to see the target. They still know that they're present and they can see all of the effects of their actions. So they can see someone getting stabbed, but they cannot see their friend stabbing the target. If they fail on their saving throw, then the target is also inaudible to their ally, so they can't shout out anything. They just can't see them in any way with any senses. Again, this is really nice for... Let's say that you are fighting 2 people. One person is a standard, I'm gonna walk up and beat the shit out of you, aka most like giants and just big guys with clubs. There's a lot of them in Pathfinder. And then they also have a friend that seems like they're going to be casting a lot of spells, maybe some buff spells, maybe some healing. If you cast Isolation on the big guy with a club, they can't be targeted by any effects from their ally. It's similar to Hollow Heart, but it's also just higher level. And I mean, really, what's the difference between not treating anyone as friends or allies or capable of helping you and being isolated anyway? Okay. Yeah, I know that there's... Honestly, I am kind of familiar with how analytics work for YouTube videos, but I'm not nearly as familiar with how they work for live streams outside of likes are good, the more people in the chat, good, the more people are talking, good. Number go up is good. Okay, so Inevitable Destination is level 4 apocryphal travel, a focus spell. So you target yourself and one enemy within 30 feet, and they get a will save. If they crit, nothing happens. If they succeed, then they take a minus 10-foot circumstance penalty to their speed until the end of their next turn. If they fail, then they can't move further from you than it was when you cast the spell, though it can move in such a way that remains equal distance. So they can't increase the radius of a circle where they're at the edge. Which is a weird way of thinking about that now that I am stopping to actually think. And they can attempt to escape against your spell DC, And if you move further away from them, then the spell ends. And if they critically fail... Okay, that's a typo. That should say critical failure instead of critical success. But they're also pulled 10 feet closer to you and fall prone if they critically fail. Because you are their inevitable destination. This is pretty good for clerics, but I think it's actually better... Or no. This is better the closer you want to be to enemies. Because this stops them from running away or attacking other people. So I think this is very good for champions that get access to focus spells. Because you can stop people from running away from you and attacking your squishier friends. This might not be as good for cloistered clerics, because they don't necessarily want people to walk up and hit them. So, still, it's pretty good. It's kind of like a ranged grapple in a way, in that you stop them from moving in a particular... Like, you stop them from moving away from you. Not stop them from moving, just... You restrict their movement. Okay, so... Purifying Veil is the water apocryphal spell for level... It's a level 4 focus spell. You create a veil of water surrounding one large or smaller creature within 60 feet. Everything on each side of the veil, so is going to be concealed, but it doesn't impede attacks or movement. If the target moves through the veil, though, then they take 4d6 good damage with a basic will save, and if the target actually ends up leaving the veil, then the spell ends, and for every level that it's heightened, the good damage increases by 1d6. So the two situations that I can see this to be useful for is whenever you're fighting an evil outsider that has weakness to good damage, which is every evil outsider. So then if they want to move, then they take 46 good damage with a basic will save and additional stuff from their weakness. And if they don't want to do that, then everyone is concealed, but they're also concealed to your allies. The other situation, which is exponentially more specific, is you can cast this on a good or neutral ally, and then anytime that an evil creature wants to move through their square, they take the good damage. That isn't going to happen all that much, because generally enemies don't try and use acrobatics to tumble through very much. Still, it's alright. The damage isn't great, but it's a good way to make sure that all of your party is concealed to a creature, even if the creature is also concealed to you. So, Shaken Confidence is the confidence level 4 focus spell. So, as a reaction, whenever an enemy critically fails on an attack roll, perception check, or skill check, you mock them, and they have to make a will save. If they succeed, nothing happens. If they fail, then they're shaken and unsure of their abilities. They have to roll twice and take the worst on the next roll of the exact same type. And if the target doesn't attempt any qualifying checks, this spell ends at the end of their next turn. So basically, if someone attacks all 3 times and critically fails on their last action, you can make them make a will save, and if they fail, then on their first attack roll of their next turn, they have to roll twice and take the worst. Honestly, it's very simple, but it doesn't need to be anything different. It does its job pretty well just on its own. So, Stirring of Fate allows for you to kind of select one other ally, and then for as long as you sustain this spell, your fate is shared with your ally. So whenever you would both have to make a saving throw against the same effect, if one of you succeeds and the other critically fails, you can choose to force both of you to fail. And you both have to agree to fail. So it basically means if you can cast this in an encounter where there's a lot of like domination effects, then you can try and stop people from being dominated. There's just a lot of good uses for this because critically failing really sucks. So being able to say, let's say that you have a fantastic will save, but you have a friend that has an amazing reflex save, then you can cast String of Fate on them, and then you share basically that saving throw. So you're both very, very unlikely to critically fail on will saves and fortitudes. Forgetting my example, will saves and reflex saves. Victory Try is the level 1 Apocryphal Might focus spell. So as a reaction, whenever an ally critically succeeds on a melee strike within 30 feet, the weapon used to make that strike deals an additional 1d6 sonic damage, which is not doubled, and the ally can then immediately attempt to shove the creature that struck, even if their hands are full. They can use an item bonus on the triggering attack, if any, and also they get a +1 status bonus to the athletics check if the triggering strike had the trip, or so basically, that's weird. So that's weird. So as a reaction, when someone crits, you can do a little bit of extra damage and give them the ability to to shove a target, but they get a bonus on their shove attempt if the weapon or unarmed strike had the trip trait. I feel like either they should be trying to trip the creature that they struck, or this should say shove trait instead of trip trait, because that doesn't make sense. That just really doesn't make sense. I don't know. That seems like a little bit of a mistake on Paizo's part. Good thing they never make any mistakes in any of their books. It'll be fixed eventually. Or it's just a very weird rolling. So Weaponized Secret. For 2 actions, this is the 4th level focus spell for the Secrecy domain. That is the alternate version. So we're only going over our alternate versions. You target up to 3 creatures. So you target up to 3 creatures, and they get a will save, or and it lasts for 1 minute, or until it's discharged. If they succeed on their will save, they are unaffected. If they fail, a rune symbolizing a secret is that the target is keeping appears in front of you, and if they attempt a strike or spell attack while you hold their secret, you can discharge the rune to deal 7d6 mental damage to the creature. This is so weird, but interesting. If they critically fail, then they are convinced that you know their secret and take 1d6 persistent mental damage from worry. If the rune with the secret is discharged, the mental damage ends. Okay, this is a weird spell, and it's honestly very good. Yeah, like, this is predominantly useful if, again, like, the base domain spell is just not very good for your particular playstyle. Like, if it assumes that you want to be next to someone when you don't want to, or it assumes that you want to be far away from someone when you want to be next to them. And also, for every level that it gets heightened, the damage increases by 2d6, and the mental damage increases by 1. Not bad. This is a very good way to keep people from hitting you. Honestly, yeah, just Yeah, I mean, don't hit me or I give you a bunch of mental damage without a saving throw. Wouldn't turn that down. As the spellcaster, I obviously wouldn't want to hit someone that has this cast on them. Oh, now this is interesting. Wind Whispers. So you take an hour to cast this focus spell, and then that is a range of 1 mile. So you call forth breezes. Choose a rumor or information you want to spread. Then within the range of the spell overhear a rumor at some point, but they'll be unable to pin down the source. This is spell DC -10 against the hard check of your level. The GM might modify the DC depending on how plausible the rumor is. And just casting it over and over again doesn't force it to happen inevitably. On a critical success, rumor spreads far and wide. For a week, anyone who succeeds on gathering information about the specific subject learns your rumor. And skill checks to convince people the rumor is true get a bonus. And anyone, so on a success, is similar. A lot of people will know about it. And anyone who tries to gather information on a specific subject adds your rumor to the list of rumors they can hear about. And it's a smaller bonus. And if you critically fail, then there's a contradictory rumor. This is so fun if you're in an urban campaign. If you're in an urban campaign, this is amazing because, my god, can you cause fucking chaos by spreading widespread, like, false rumors. And yeah, a 1 mile radius in a city is huge. Like, that's really nice. So next up is, and really the last one, is Wordsmith. So for 3 actions, and only has a range of touch. Oh, so that's... Oh, okay. This is less of a combat spell than I thought it was. Okay, I was worried for a second about having a 3-action cost and then only have a range of touch, but it's not as bad as I was worried about. So you target 1 document that is written by a single author and is comprised of written text in a single language. And until the next time you refocus, so you shift the language of the text into one that you understand, and it doesn't change the text contents beyond minor translation differences, nor does it grant the reader... So basically, this is just a comprehend language spell, but for one specific option. And yeah, I'm playing through Agents of Edgewatch, and we're like very late into it, but we have a character that is a dandy and has tried to use the ability to manipulate rumors so much, but every single urban campaign would love you. Wind Whispers is fucking madness. Although I wonder if, like, there's a bunch of people trying to use Wind Whispers to manipulate, like, gossip and rumors to their advantage, but then there are also a bunch of, like, followers of a different god who really don't like spreading false rumors that are trying to, like, counteract it every day. Regardless, Wordsmith in particular types of campaigns is amazing. But if you don't come across a bunch of unknown documents in a language that you can't understand, then it's not good. So if it's in the right campaign, this is amazing. If it's in the wrong campaign, you're not going to see use out of it. That's just how it works. Now, I could be going over the rituals, but I don't have much time today. This has already taken longer than I was expecting. I have a Pathfinder game in about 2 hours. So I'm going to be skipping over the cult rituals, because honestly, I don't know much about rituals anyway, so I would kind of just be reading them for the first time and then giving my first impressions, which isn't going to be as entertaining than going over actual player options that you can just pick. So, especially because I cover archetypes. That's what I do in this channel. I want to talk about archetypes. So there's actually a new witch patron called Pact Witch, which is honestly very cool. Like, I love this. It is rare, which sucks if you're in a more strict group, but honestly, this isn't like as crazy as like someone whose patron is Baba Yaga. I don't think that those are quite on the same tier of rarity. But regardless, a Pact Witch casts occult spells, they learn occultism, and they get Command, which is an amazing spell. And the Pact Breaker Hex Cantrip, or Pact Broker, which we'll talk about in a second. And a witch with the Pact Patron can select this as a greater lesson, which is lesson of favors. You learn the Return the Favor Hex, and your familiar learns Mind of Menace. We'll talk about Return the Favor in a bit. And lesson of bargains. It is major lessons where you gain the Over the Coals Hex, and your familiar learns Subconscious Suggestion. So these cantrips. Pact Booker is a single action one with a verbal component where you select a creature within 30 feet. Make it a will save. You offer a Pact of Peace. If the target accepts it and doesn't take hostile actions against you or your allies, you take a -1 status penalty to Deception to lie. If they refuse and take a hostile action against you or an ally, they make a will save then. If they accept the offer and then take a hostile action, they make a will save and then treat the category as one result worse. And then regardless of the outcome, they're immune for 1 minute. That's normal for witch hexes. If they succeed on their will save, nothing happens. If they fail, then they take a penalty on attack and damage rolls against you or your allies. And if they critically fail, then they take a -2 status penalty. This is sick as hell. So the thing is, even if they don't agree to your Pact of Peace, they still have to make the save if they attack you. And if you can, honestly, this entire patron just seems like it's trying to get people to break pacts, form pacts, and then manipulate them into breaking them. And this critical failure effect is so bad because, I mean, yeah, you have to sustain it, but it's still, like, just to put this into perspective, being frightened 2 is really bad and really reduces your accuracy. So, a frightened 2 is a -2 status penalty, but it goes down automatically every single turn. This doesn't go down so long as you sustain it. This is better than frightened 2 if you can apply it. And the failure effect is better than frightened 1 if it's being cast on a creature that makes, attack rolls. It's not better if they're a spellcaster, obviously. But yeah, this is just sick. Return the Favor is a fun reaction, focus spell, where whenever an ally uses a reaction to grant you a beneficial effect, you can return the favor. So because you cannot leave any debts unpaid. So whenever someone supports you in a fight, they get 12 temporary hit points for a minute. And for every level that this gets heightened, the hit points increase by 4. How useful this is depends so much on your party composition. If you have a champion, this is very good because champions just have very good reactions that can help out people. Now, a lot of it depends on what your GM counts as a beneficial effect from a reaction. Is a fighter using attack of opportunity to hit someone that is trying to approach you, is that a beneficial effect? If it is, then this is much better. If it isn't, then this is a bit worse. Basically, how easily it is you can actually use this really controls how good it is. Over the Coals is a level 5 focus spell. And I remember this one being really good. Oh, also, yeah, the title is kind of a lie. I've read through a lot of this. Because if it's actual first impressions, it takes so long to go over stuff because I have to read it very carefully. So, Over the Coals, you accuse a target of breaking its word and demand that they pay you in some way. And the demand can't be obviously self-destructive, because obviously you're trying to compel someone, and actually no, this isn't even enchantment, but they have to make a will save. So basically, you make a demand, and if they don't fulfill that demand, you drain their life force. So, if they critically succeed, they're immune to all Pact Broker cantrips for a day. Oh, sorry, just the single one, Pact Broker. If they succeed and they don't comply with your request, they take 3d6 persistent negative damage. If it later complies, then the spell ends and the persistent negative damage goes away. If they fail in their saving throw, then it's drained 1 and takes 6d8 persistent negative damage. And if they critically succeed, or critically fail, it's as success, but if they don't comply, they are drained 2, doomed 1, and take 66 persistent negative damage, and even if they complete your demands later, the spell doesn't end. Until all the conditions end, which, you're drained 2, that's going to take 2 days until the spell's done. And if you heighten this to 9th level, you can target up to 2 creatures. Now, obviously, you want to try and pick a demand that would be bad. Oh, so depending on what you're fighting and who you're fighting and the situation you're in, what you actually want to use this spell for changes. So, let's say you're fighting a creature that is using a very, very fancy magic sword. So, you could maybe try and demand, hey, you're breaking the law, hand over your sword. And if they don't hand over their sword, they have to make a will save. If they hand over their sword, they just probably gave up a magic weapon. And they're going to be a lot less effective when they're continuing to fight you. So, that's fun. Okay. This is just a very, very good cantrip, unless you're fighting undead, and then it does hardly anything to them, because they don't care about persistent negative damage. Alright, so next, I'm not covering cursed items, because you shouldn't know what those are. The more you know about cursed items, you're more likely to actually spot them before they curse you. So, let's move on to the Packbinder. This is a pretty simple archetype. It doesn't have all that many feats, and that's because this is an archetype that is designed for your GM to make up new feats for you. So, this is an archetype that is based around making pacts with entities to gain power. So you have to be trained in diplomacy as well as one of the 4 magic skills. And as a pact binder, also this is uncommon, so yeah, it's a lot easier to get than if it's rare. But you are very good at keeping your word, and your proficiency increases to expert in diplomacy and also increases for Arcana, Nature, Occultism, or Religion. You pick one to go to expert. So, as an action, once per day, you can make a binding vow. This is a vow that you cannot willfully break, unless it would literally kill you to do otherwise, unless you, of course, in your vow said that you would continue until death. Try and leave yourself a little bit of wiggle room so you don't have to kill yourself. So you could vow to say, I will vow to get your lost possession back, or I will vow to uphold the peace. I vow to, I don't know, do all kinds of things. Regardless, if also, this lasts until you fulfill the vow, no matter what. If you die and you get brought back to life, your vow is still in effect, and you can have more than one in effect at a time. This has a lot of RP potential. But in terms of actual mechanical stuff, whenever you make a request or try and coerce someone directly in service of fulfilling your vow, you get a bonus if your creature is aware of your vow. The easiest way to make someone aware of your vow is to tell them that you have made a vow. There are other abilities that make this a little bit better, like Sociable Vow, which requires that you're an expert in diplomacy. You are, because the Pathfinder dedication makes you into one. This is a skill feat. Whenever, basically, the circumstance bonus from your binding vow also applies to attempts to gather information, make an impression, or demoralize. So yeah, this is just a lot better. It makes your binding vow applicable in many, many more situations, because making a request or coercing don't come up a huge amount. Like gathering information and demoralizing and making an impression, probably the main uses of diplomacy and intimidate. So it's a lot better. Also, to make sure that you can get access to the status bonus to demoralize at all times, I recommend on a day of downtime making a vow to always uphold your own self-defense. So then if someone is attacking you, you can invoke the vow as part of your demoralize in almost every combat. You just want to have a vow that you can use in combat even if you have no idea who the hell you're fighting. So now we get into all of the other feats in this archetype, which are all pacts that you make to a specific powerful entity where you give up something of value to get something of value in return. Often you get something in return for services. So the Pact of Fey Glamour means that you make a pact with Fey of some kind. This grants you whatever otherworldly appearance you want in exchange for hospitality. So as long as you keep your end of the bargain, you can change your base appearance into one thing, and it sticks as that for as long as you maintain your your end of the bargain. And also you still have to stick within the bounds of possibility for your ancestry, and this cannot be counteracted or dispelled in any way. Additionally, you can also cast Illusory Disguise once per hour, which I'm forgetting what the how long does Illusory Disguise last? Illusory Disguise at level 1, because it doesn't say otherwise, lasts for an hour. So basically you can change what you look like once an hour, although your core base appearance can't be changed that much. I wonder how many there's gotta be a shocking I wonder how, basically what I'm just wondering is, I wonder how many trans people that they are that have vowed to serve the Fae in term to get basically gender swapping services. Regardless, what you give to get this is you promise to accept any Fae's request of hospitality for 3 days and 3 nights. You can also you do need to contact them in some form, but you're almost certainly, let's say that you want to build a character that has the Pact of Fey Glamour. You pretty much have to talk with your GM and say, hey, sometime at about level 4, can we run into a Fae that's going to ask for a pact? you kind of have to work with your GM with that to actually make sure that you will get a chance to get that for your character. And you have to do that for every single one of these. But you basically promise to not harm anyone that you've offered hospitality to, whether or not they're Fae, or anyone who has offered hospitality to you, unless they try to hurt you first. If you refuse hospitality or violate hospitality, you lose the benefits of this feat until you atone. Yeah, this is not a mechanically powerful feat. This is just a very fun RP feat. Pact of Draconic Fury is a little bit more mechanical. So you swore a pact with the dragon, basically allowing you to breathe fire or whatever is applicable for you. You need to contact a Fae to take the feat. So basically you have to agree with a Fae. I will then give hospitality to all other Fae if you give me illusion magic. But you need to contact them at least once. But for Pact of Draconic Fury, it's level 6. So you get the ability to breathe dragon, or use a draconic breath weapon, and in exchange, you offer to bring objects to a dragon for its hoard. Now, these might be extraordinarily specific, unique objects, or they could just be, I don't know, I want shiny shit. Then you have to bring shiny shit. And the dragon is also going to pay a fair price for your item, but the pact requires you to at least give up some of your time in service. So once per hour for 2 actions, you can breathe a lion or a cone of your breath weapon. Basically, you use the breath weapon of the dragon that you swore to. It's a 30-foot cone if it's a cone, and it's a 60-foot line if it's a line. If they had a burst shaped breath weapon, then it's a 10-foot burst. No matter what, it deals 1d6 damage per level with the same damage type as the dragon's breath weapon with a basic reflex DC. Pretty simple. I mean, good AoEs are hard to come by for a lot of characters, especially ones that are renewable. So, a Pact of Infernal Prowess is a deal that you make with a devil, which gives you success in exchange for your soul. So once an hour, whenever you critically fail on a check, presumably skill check, because it's not an attack roll or saving throw, it is a check, and checks are generally only used for flat checks and skill checks, so I would assume that those are the only situations that you can actually use this. You can re-roll that check as a fortune effect. And also, whenever you are trying to earn an income, you can automatically succeed without rolling, so you don't have to try to make money anymore. Whenever you die, though, your soul goes to hell, and you can't be returned to life outside of things like Miracle. And even once you get to that point, if you do actually come back, then the devils with the contract can track you with a discern location spell at all times, and they can also look at you with a 10th level scrying spell at will, and you automatically critically fail your saving throw against the scry. Also, the only way to get rid of this pact is to go to hell and destroy the written version of the contract that is kept in hell. I mean, this is fun. This is a fun thing to come in, like, if you come in at level 8 with a character nobody else knows in the party. Yeah, I guess that they are checks. I haven't seen that word, like that wording, very much. But this is a fun thing to keep a secret from the party, and then say, oh yeah, I guess I forgot to mention to you guys, Breath of Life isn't gonna work on me. Kind of in the opposite direction, Pact of the Final Breath is a pact that you make with a very powerful Psychobomb, which grants you additional time in exchange for paying respects to the dead and destroying the undead. So as long as you keep your end of the bargain, you live twice as long as you would normally before dying of natural causes. And also the first time each day that you would be reduced to 0 hit points again, the dying condition, you instead regain hit points equal to twice your level, remain conscious, and gain fast healing equal to your level for 3 rounds. That's a shit ton of healing. You're just going to be a lot harder to kill. But in exchange, you have to perform last rites and dispositions to spirits to put them to rest and help them not become undead. And also, you swear to destroy all undead you come across so long as it isn't a suicide mission. And violating your pact causes its protections to end immediately. If you've already lived over half of your natural lifespan, you get a few moments to say farewells, and then you die. So... yeah, this is just a fun spell. Like, if you're playing a good character, this is not very much to give up. Like, oh no, I have to say prayers and like final rites for dead people, and I have to fight undead, which are probably evil anyway and trying to kill us. In a good party, this is just an amazing feat. In a neutral party, this can be a little bit problematic. In an evil party with a necromancer, you can't take this feat. Sorry, you can't take this feat while we're still remaining in the party. The Pact of the Eldritch Eyes is probably my favorite one of all of these feats. Undead heritages, like Damphir specifically, you are not undead. You have negative healing, but you are not specifically undead. You're still technically a living creature for effects that target living creatures. It's weird, so I think that, like, there are... I don't think that you would be obligated to destroy Damphirs, considering that I know for a fact that there are canonically, like... Or at least I'm pretty certain that there are, literal Damphir clerics of Pharasma. And if Damphirs can get powers from Pharasma to destroy undead, I don't think that if you have the Pact of Final Breath, you have to destroy Damphirs. There are just creatures that have negative healing but are not undead. So I don't think it having negative healing means that it is undead for the purposes of this feat. Oh, if you have skill... Oh, no, you're fucked. I think that if you have a undead archetype or something, you cannot get this feat because there is no psychopomp that will be willing to cooperate with you. Because psychopomps just destroy undead that they see. Psychopomps don't cooperate with undead. Just kind of as a rule. And if at level 12, if you come across either of those, I'm forgetting exactly what level the Altheros is. Oh, are they not in? They might not be in, are they not in Pathfinder 2e yet? I thought they were. Regardless, the Yamirages are like level 20 creatures. So at level 12, yeah, if you're an undead that tries to like sway a psychopomp into giving you additional lifespan, they're just gonna fucking wreck you. It's the same kind of thing of like, if you're a devil and you walk up to an angry angel and say, hey, can I get some angelic power, please? They're probably not going to be happy with you. Yeah, I think that the Altheroses are like... I think they're about, like, level 16 or so. They're badasses. Regardless, my favorite Pact-Binder feat is easily Pact of Eldritch Eyes. So, you swear a pact with an entity beyond mortal comprehension, which allows you to see things. You can cast Prying Eye as an occult spell once per hour. And also, like, what do you get for this? So, in exchange, the entity can peer through your eyes to see the world. This creates strange dreams, like nightmares. Every morning, you awaken trained in a random lore skill that is determined by your GM, which you retain until the next time you rest. Whenever the entity contacts you, whenever you sleep, it occasionally appears at you during the day, leading to disorientation and visions. You generally determine what's going on during these visions. So this doesn't have a mechanical penalty, but you might just start seeing double. You might, I don't know, become colorblind. You might start seeing 4 base colors instead of 3. Who knows? Weird elder gods are looking through your eyes now. However, in the unlikely incident that an encounter begins while you're experiencing visions, then you take a penalty of some kind to your initiative bonus, because Paizo forgot to put in the actual number. And also, if you ever don't want this feat anymore, you can just retrain out of it. The deity doesn't care. I believe that Pharasma does, because I believe that Dhamphirs are, they're not undead, and I know that there are a lot of undead hunting Dhamphirs. I could be wrong about that, but generally speaking, Dhamphirs are distinct from undead. Like, they are living creatures, but they respond to negative energy as if they were undead. So I could see in different regions of the world, they are reacted to differently. Maybe in Ustalov they aren't allowed into the church or whatever, but that's really something that depends a lot on your GM and how they interpret Dhamphirs. That's not something that I can say for certain. But you can retrain out of the Pact of Exercise at any time, because the entity doesn't care. You can't comprehend how it thinks or what its motives are. Which is just fun. The fun part about this feat to me is that Prying Eyes is a pretty useful spell, especially if you can cast it once an hour. You can use this to look through keyholes, look around doors, do all kinds of exploration. So yeah, so just to put this into perspective, Prying Eye moves 30 feet whenever you sustain this spell. And there's no limit on how far it can move. It can go anywhere, so long as you continue to sustain it, and you can cast this once an hour. This is an amazing spell. And the best part is, you don't know what you're paying for it with. Because you can't comprehend the mind of the thing you made the deal with. It's just really fun. So the Cursed Maelstrom is the next archetype. We kind of have to keep on moving. At the rate I'm going, I'm not going to be able to cover everything today. Because, God, the second half of this book is packed. Because there's Cursed Maelstrom, Time Mage, Chrono Skipper, Time Oracle, Psychic Duelist, Mindsmith, Sleepwalker. But I'll try and get through as much as I can. So, I really should have scheduled this stream for like 2 hours earlier, and I could have gotten everything done. Okay, so, Cursed Maelstrom. Basically, to take this feat, you have to be cursed, or you have to have been cursed, and regardless, you are basically cursed with bad luck. So, you can suppress this, but during an encounter, so basically, you are cursed with bad luck, and there's always bad luck surrounding you. In an encounter, whenever you succeed on a check of any kind, the GM can offer to allow you to roll again, and you take the second result. This is a misfortune effect, and if you do, you enter a Cursed Maelstrom state, which is the entire thing that this archetype revolves around. Also, if a foe places a misfortune effect upon your roll, and the effect applies to your roll, you can enter a Cursed Maelstrom state immediately, and if you fail the save against the foe's curse effect and are affected by the curse, you also enter a Cursed Maelstrom effect. No matter the source, you could only enter a Cursed Maelstrom during an encounter, and it ends at the end of an encounter. While in a Maelstrom, you cannot benefit from fortune effects, and they don't cancel out misfortune effects on normal. They just don't do anything. And while in this state, all creatures other than you in a 10-foot emanation take a -1 status penalty on all saving throws and skill checks. And you get the Expel Maelstrom reaction while in it. For one action, you expel the Maelstrom from your body, sending the energy to reside into one unlucky creature in 60 feet. This ends the effect, and they get a will save. So if they get a critical success, they are unaffected, and you just end the Maelstrom effect. If they succeed, then they take a -1 status penalty on all saving throws and skill checks for 1 minute, which is the normal effect of the Maelstrom if things are within 10 feet of you. But now, if they try and run, they're still unlucky. If they fail, they take a -2 status penalty to all saving throws and skill checks for 10 minutes. That's fucked. If they critically fail, then they suffer the same effect as the failure, but they also must roll twice and take the better on its next saving throw or skill check. So just the one. But still, rolling twice and taking the worst while also having a -2 penalty is really rough. This is fantastic for spending one action to curse someone, force them to make a will save, and then casting another spell on them. The Familiar Oddities feat is a skill feat that requires that you're trained in occultism or curse lore, and you get a bonus to identify magic items that are cursed, or to identify a spell that has the curse trait. So you got cursed at some point, you then research curses because you were cursed. Now you're very good at knowing everything about curses. So Unnerving Expansion is a level 4 feat. For one action, you gather your curse and then expel it outward, expanding the Maelstrom. The radius of the emanation of your cursed Maelstrom increases by 5 feet until the end of your state. Also, while doing so, you can attempt to demoralize a creature within the emanation of your cursed Maelstrom, and you don't need to share a language with them. Because who knew that someone spreading around literal bad luck in the air is really intimidating. If you're good at Intimidate, this is fantastic for a... this only affects one creature in the emanation. Still, it's really good. You presumably want this emanation to be larger so you can get more people in it. Just try not to get your allies in it. Share Burden is a fun reaction. So whenever an ally within 60 feet would be affected by a curse or misfortune effect, and you wouldn't, but you could have been. So they cast a curse on your ally instead of you, pretty much. You draw that curse or misfortune into you, potentially allowing you to enter Cursed Maelstrom. Instead of affecting your ally, this affects you instead. So you can just be a funnel for bad luck for your entire party, drawing every single curse or thing into you. Now, this doesn't... for example, if someone hits an ally, or if a mummy hits an ally and they fail their saving throw against mummy rot, this doesn't actually transfer over mummy rot, because you would not be an eligible target for the effect, because you weren't hit. But if they cast a spell, then I think that it is viable, presumably as long as you're within range of that spell. If you have a good will save, this is really good. Because if you have a good will save, you're presumably better off against curses than your allies are. A Cursed Magic allows you to cast Claim Curse once a day. At 10th level, you can also cast Seal Fate, and at 12th level, you can cast Inevitable Disaster. Yeah, I mean, we just love some spells per day that are really thematic. Not a whole lot to talk about, but Counter Curse is at level 8 as well, and as a reaction, while you're in Cursed Maelstrom state, and you or an ally are targeted by a curse or a misfortune effect from an object or opponent of which you're aware of, you can attempt to counteract against the triggering effect. On a success, you neutralize the curse or misfortune effect. And if it was constant, it returns automatically at the beginning of that creature's next turn. And whether or not you succeed, it automatically ends your Maelstrom state. So this is fun. Because, yeah, your curse is the top dog. When it's around, no other curses get to do what they want. Curses are really annoying to deal with, especially if you have a spontaneous divine caster, because they're either going to have to spend one of their known spells to remove curse, or you're going to have to pay someone else to prepare it at the requisite level you need to get rid of the curse. Torrential Backlash is level 10 feet for 2 actions. While in a Cursed Maelstrom state, release the curse from within yourself, allowing it free reign to destroy everything. All creatures within your Cursed Maelstrom take 1d6 negative level for every level you have with a basic reflex save. And then it ends. Again, nice AoE. Not hugely special, but just a fun AoE ability. Reverse Curse requires Counter Curse, and then whenever you successfully counteract a curse or misfortune effect, you send it back at the person who caused it. They're affected by their own curse, attempting a saving throw against their own DC. If the effective fire requires a saving throw, it's a constant ability, then they're only affected until the beginning of its next turn. This is just fun. If someone's gonna start casting around curses, they've got to be able to take what they put down. And I believe that is everything. Yeah, it is Curse Ball. You are bad. You are literally just bad luck to be around. And ideally, that means you stay closer to enemies than it means you stay closer to allies. But that is everything player facing from the Curses and Pact section, which means we can move on to a chunky section. Yeah, this is really good for oracles. But we can actually move on to talking about some time shit. In particular, there's a bunch of new temporal spells. If it would load. Okay. So temporal spells are just spells that fuck with time. And these are, you can take these with basically every character, although generally not with I think there's only one divine spell in all of these, which is sucks. No, 2. There's 2. Generally occult, you can take most of these. Arcane, you can take a lot of them. Primal, you've got some options. But all of these just mess around with time and do fun things. So Awaken Entropy, 3 actions. You select a 10-foot burst. And within it, you speed up time. Everything begins to crumble and die. Things in the area take 8d6 negative damage or 8d6 force damage. Even things with unlimited lifespans get worn away by the inevitable entropy of the universe. We should have time to cover everything in temporal anomalies, and if I don't think I'll have time to cover all of Mindscapes, I will cover the Mindsmith archetype, because I doubt that we'll have time to cover all the rules covering psychic duels, because to understand the psychic duelist archetype, you kind of have to understand psychic duels, and I wasn't planning on covering the Sleepwalker anyway, because I put out a video on that yesterday that is going into more detail than I would be going into in this stream. So I think I should be able to cover everything. I might just have to talk a little bit faster. Everything except the Psychic Duelist, most likely I should be able to fit into. Regardless, let's just speed up. So, the special thing about this spell is, okay, it's a 10-foot burst that does some negative damage or force damage. Okay, cool enough. But whenever you sustain, the entropic zone goes stronger, and its duration increases. So the radius increases by 10 feet, and the damage die from the spell increases by 1 size. So from d6 to d8 to d10 to d12. If you can lock someone in this area, ooh boy, that's a lot of damage. This is an amazing spell to pop down, and then have someone in your party who has the Whirling Throw feat to just chuck people into the Time Blender. There are multiple Time Blender spells in this book. Behold the Weave is a divine and occult spell. We target one creature, and they have to make a will save, as you behold timelines that weave around that individual. If they critically succeed, you can't make heads or tails of that target's timelines. If you succeed, you commit a single action that they have to take at some point on their next turn, like stride toward a particular character, cast shield because it's a single action spell, or try and strike someone with a particular attack. That action is now locked in, and they have to do it. Even if the situation changed. Like if they had to make a strike at someone and that person is no longer next to them, they still have to do it. Although, if the situation changes and they can no longer even make that, they must lose an action. So if they spend 2 actions attacking someone, but then they're required to attack someone with a melee attack who's 30 feet away, they just lose their 3rd action. If they fail, then you can choose what 2 of that creature's actions are going to be. So stride over and then attack an individual. If they critically fail, then you can dictate all 3 of their actions. This spell does have the incapacitation trait. I mean, honestly, the main thing that I would want to use this on spellcasters for is stride away. Because if you say you have to stride away, then, oh, well, that might provoke attacks of opportunity. It might, like, let's say that you can control 2, let's say that a spellcaster fails. You can say, you're going to stride away, and then you're going to cast a 1-action spell. You can't cast a 2-action spell this turn, idiot. Don't fail your saving throws. And also, if you hit this to 7th level, you can target all enemies within 30 feet of you. I think, oh, the target has to commit. I didn't read that correctly. I don't know how I read the first sentence of the success effect wrong, but it does mean that you do know. So you can then take plans to stop it. If you know that they're going to be attacking one specific person, then you can cast remove, like resist energy, or that person can run away from them. Okay, that is a lot more understandable now. Okay. I was thinking that was a way too good of a spell. Stayed up a little bit late last night. And yeah, you don't get to command them. Although, throw your component pouch into this pit is pretty good for the command spell. Although you don't, a lot of spellcasters don't actually need component pouches anymore. Regardless, I'm gonna move on because again, slightly limited time. So, Loose Time's Arrow is a 2-action 2nd level spell for everything but divine. Classic. So until your next turn, 6 creatures within 30 feet of you are all quickened that they can use this 2-stepper stride. This is really nice. For round 1, the wizard goes first. They don't want to fireball, so they're gonna use Loose Time's Arrow to help all of the marshals reposition and get to where they want to be. I mean, giving everyone an extra stride or strike is just fun. It can help people get into flanks easier, or just approach people, or get distance if they don't want to be near to someone. Just a very simple, useful spell. Morass of Ages. You surround yourself with weird time things, which makes every step feel like an eternity. So, a creature in the emanation or that later enters it has to make a fortitude save. They only have to make this fortitude save once if they enter and then, or if they leave and then come back in. each time you sustain the spell, it increases by 5 feet, up to a maximum of 60. If they crit succeed, nothing happens. If they succeed, everything in the emanation is difficult terrain. And if they fail, everything is difficult terrain, and they're slowed 1 when they start their turn. If it's a critical failure, all the creatures also become restrained and have to escape to remove the restrained condition. This restrained is fucking terrible. If someone critically fails from on their saving throw, they're literally incapable of casting second level spells so long as you sustain this spell, or not second level, 2 action spells, because they're slowed 1 and then they have to escape to actually be able to use manipulate actions or attack actions. This is a really good spell. Just be careful to not screw over your allies, because again, this is an emanation that affects everyone in it, including your allies, and slowing all of your allies is not going to make them like you. Quicken Time is a 5th level arcane or occult spell that takes 2 actions to cast. The 20-foot burst. You create an area where time flows faster. Any creature that begins its turn in the area is quickened and can only use the extra actions to stride or strike. And unfortunately, speeding up time is much more difficult than slowing it down, meaning that creatures inside the area are concealed to those outside of it, and vice versa. If your friends have a way to be able to ignore the concealed condition, like if they have blind fight, then this is great to cast like away from all of the enemies that you're fighting, and then have, like, I don't know, your flurry ranger with a bow can go sit inside of the time bubble and then get an additional attack every round. And then if they have blind fight, they don't have to deal as much with the concealed condition. It's like a weird haste. Stagnate Time is a 5th level spell. You target a 20-foot burst, and you try and thicken and slow down time. It's basically the opposite of Quicken Time. Any creature that begins its turn in the area has to make a will save. If they succeed, nothing happens. If they fail, they're slowed 1 for that individual turn. And if they critically fail, then they're slowed 2 that turn. Again, this is a spell similar to Morass of Ages, which gets so much better depending on, or was it Morass? No, it wasn't Morass of Ages. It was Awaken Entropy. Both Awaken Entropy and Stagnate Time, their power depends substantially on your party's ability to control enemy movement. If you have someone in the party who is really focusing on shove, or whirling throw, or abilities in that line that just put people where they don't want to be, then Awaken Entropy and Stagnate Time are very good. If someone's in the time bubble and they're slowed too, they might not be getting out of that time bubble that turn. If you have a time bubble and then you make it all difficult terrain, it's, yeah. And yeah, that's a very good point about having additional options to apply the slowed condition. Makes it a lot better for more, it just gives slow competition is good, because yeah, slow is one of the best spells in the entire game. It needs competition. Then a summon, this isn't actually a summon spell, this is an incarnate spell. I am going to mispronounce the name, but summon Irie? I don't know how you pronounce I-R-I-I, but this is an incarnate spell, meaning that whenever you use it, something appears, causes an effect to happen, and at the end of your next turn, then it goes away, causing an additional effect. So you cause a weird temporal being called an Eerie. It is either a Fate Eerie or a Fortune Eerie. And it can also move around, but it doesn't really... You would want it to move around just so its exit effects go to effect. but if it's a Fate Eerie, whenever it appears, there's a decree of the immutability of time. Well, within 30 feet of the Fate Eerie, you and your allies who roll below a 10 on d20 rolls for attack rolls, perception checks, skill checks, or saving throws get a 10. 10 is your minimum on your d20 rolls, which is absurd. And once they leave, any enemy who was within a 30-foot emanation must attempt a will save. If they fail until the end of their next turn, anytime it rolls a d20, 10 is its maximum, rather than which is absurd. This is an insane spell. To make 10 the maximum for a round? That's so good. There's a decent chance if someone's using an agile weapon, if your ally's using an agile weapon and 10 is their minimum, they might have a 50% chance, or maybe even more like a 100% chance of hitting on their third attack. This is an insane spell. The Fortune Eerie is different though. So when they arrive, there's the decree of the Chaos of Infinity, meaning that while within 30 feet, you and your allies roll twice and take the higher on all damage rolls, perception checks, and saving throws. Rolling twice and taking the better on saving throws is really good. Sunder Eternity's Authority is what happens whenever it leaves, though, as every enemy then has to make a will save. If it fails, it has to roll twice and take the lower result on all damage rolls, perception checks, and saving throws until the end of its next turn. This is an absurdly powerful spell, which is why it's rare. Suspended Retribution is a level 6 spell, 2 actions, it's divine and occult. So, you choose one creature. An omen of disaster appears above that target's head. Traditionally, this is like a sword hanging above them, or it could be a noose, or like a grinning skull, or some other sign that they're about to get fucked up. So, whenever you cast the spell, you pick a trigger. Either whenever they move more than their speed in one round, they make more than one strike, they cast a spell, they use a specific ability that you specifically name, or just do something. If they take that triggering action in the next minute, the sword swings down, which deals 70 mental damage with a basic reflex save. And they know what action will trigger the omen, and they can ward it off by spending 3 actions to get rid of it. If you cast this on a spellcaster, and this is amazing, if you cast this on someone who doesn't have nearly as good of a reflex, or if you cast this on a character that clearly has a very good reflex save, this is not nearly as good. If you cast this on someone with a amazing reflex save, it's not good. Basically, you can try and influence people away from taking particular actions. And also, good luck getting rid of this. It's a curse. Okay, now we get to probably the weirdest spell that we've read today, which is Temporal Twin. This is an uncommon spell. You target one ally within 30 feet, and until the end of your next turn, you create a duplicate of your ally that appears within 30 feet of you and repeats a basic action that the target, so an ally of yours, took since the end of your last turn, like making a strike or interacting with an object. Because they can only make basic actions, they can't do anything more complicated than strike and interact. Or you could also oh, my ally strode last turn, so I'm going to create a temporal twin of that creature that is then going to stride through an area that we know is trapped to set off the trap. Also, your ally that you're casting this on, that you're targeting, has to spend an action to create the duplicate and make decisions for them in rolls for the repeated action. So they have to spend their reaction to choose the target for the temporal twin to make a strike towards. This is such a weird spell, but it allows for your ally to make a strike against maybe people that they aren't next to, because they used to be next to an individual. Therefore, you can make a twin of them whenever they were there to make an attack roll. It's a very weird spell that I honestly don't know how to feel about. So I'm just gonna move on because it's the only uncommon one for good reason. Time Pocket just takes a minute to cast, and you select one item of one bulk or less, and it moves forward in time until your next daily preparations or whenever you fall unconscious. Or whenever you dismiss the spell. You send it forward in time until you ask for it next, pretty much. So this is an absurdly good way of keeping one item secret, because it literally is not present anymore. There's no evidence of it existing on your person because it isn't there. It's in the future. If you want to smuggle something, this is the way to do it. I do wish that this spell heightened, though, for affecting larger bulk items. So if you needed to, like, smuggle a chest out of a building, you could cast this at, like, 5th level and then target, like, a 3 bulk item instead. Still, it's very good. Time Sense is a brand new cantrip. Shocker, actually new cantrips. It is an arcane or occult cantrip with a just one action verbal component. Whenever you cast it, you know what time it is, down to the second. You can also choose to get a perfect sense of the calendar that it is. If you're trained in nature, you can know how long it is until sunrise, or how many days it is until the next solstice. If you're trained in astronomy lore, you can learn precisely when any known predictable astronomical... Basically, you know whenever there's going to be a planetary alignment. Now, in terms of mechanical uses, you can also use this to get a +1 status bonus on one attack roll, perception check, saving throw, or skill check that you make on the same turn that you cast Time Sense. And once you choose to get this bonus, you can't get the bonus again for an hour. This is pretty useful for its mechanical benefit. If you can come up... If your GM allows, the idea of attacking someone is very timing sensitive, because once you see an opening, you have to capitalize on it very quickly, then it's good. They might not allow that, though. But the real draw of Time Sense is that you can annoy the hell out of your GM, because asking, what time of the day is it, down to the minute or second, is going to get old real fast, and make sure to ask it enough that it's like a running joke level of annoyance, and not like they're about to commit a felony kind of annoyance. But still, it's a fun spell. In particular scenarios, this can be very useful. In others, it's just a fun roleplay cantrip. I love fun roleplay cantrips. Oh, and now we move on to one of the two time archetypes, the Time Mage. Time Mages are people who focus on manipulating time with their magic. Pretty simple. They get access to all of these. I am not going to be covering them because they're not in this book, and I didn't set up the stream to load anything else. So, the Time Mage is uncommon, and then you get available to at level 6 if you have a spellcasting class feature. So, you get the Delay Consequences domain spell. It costs a focus point. That's just from Gods and Magic. If you already know Delay Consequence from a other source, like you're a cleric, or just get it from Domain Initiate, you can retrain that option to a different domain spell, and as your timeline rearranges itself, so you've actually like known that domain spell all along. Basically, weird time shenanigans where now that you get access to 2 different spells. It's very weird. Oh god, that's a name. Chrono requires that you're a master in perception at level 7. It is a skill feat, so you're automatically aware of any creature that you observe is under the effects of the slowed or quickened conditions, and you have a general idea of when you're in the vicinity of time manipulating phenomena, though this grants you no particular insight into the specific effects of that anomaly. Particularly subtle effects might escape your notice. If you're legendary in Arcana, Nature, Occultism, or Religion, whenever a creature gains the benefit of time stop, you can observe what happens during the stop time, though you still can't act. Okay. This is weird. It's weird that it is a skill feat that requires perception proficiency, because perception isn't a skill. This is a feat that is very useful if you are not the only time mage in the campaign. If you know for a fact that there are other people who are using a bunch of time magic, this is a incredibly useful feat. It is basically at will detect time shenanigans. If you aren't the only time mage, or sorry, if you are the only weird wizard who decides to fuck around with time, it isn't very good, because it only detects weird time shenanigans. Also, the ability to know what happens during time stop is fun, because you can just call people's bluffs. Okay, so Chronomancer's Secrets is level 8 feat, where you can cast the Stasis Domain spell or Path of Least Resistance. You have to pick one. We'll cover Path of Least Resistance now, actually. It's on the same page. So, Path of Least Resistance is a weird divination spell. Yeah, this book includes the Psychic has a lot of defenses against other people who are using mental effects. And the main class that has mental effects are Psychics. So, the Dark Archive, everything from this book works best if the campaign is built with the Dark Archive in mind. But Path of Least Resistance is a weird spell. So you select multiple routes. So you choose 3 spaces that you could reach with 2 stride actions. Each one has to be within 20 feet of the other 2, and then you stride twice to one of the spaces, which is determined randomly by the GM, from among the hidden paths that you choose. If some of those paths contain hidden dangers, like a trap or an ambush or something, you don't consider that path when randomly determining which one you take. So if you select 3 locations to move to, and 2 of those locations are impossible to move to without setting off a trap, you go to the 3rd one. You don't know the reason why you selected that one, but you know it's safe, unless all 3 are dangerous, in which case you just randomly choose between all 3 of them. Also, this movement doesn't trigger reactions. So this is both useful for moving through an area that is littered with traps, so you can make sure that you're moving to somewhere safe. This is also useful for, oh fuck, oh no, I'm next to someone, I don't like that. 1 action, spend a focus point, just stride twice. So it is both a way to avoid traps and also a way to spend 1 action and a focus point to strike twice. So Future Spell Learning is a weird spell. You add Behold the Weave, we just talked about that. Cast into Time, Haste, Loose Time 0, we just talked about that. Quicken Time, we talked about that. Slow, and Stagnate Time to your spell list. You can then learn these even if they aren't normally on your tradition spell list. So a lot of these are not divine. I have been wanting to play Katana's Hero. But a lot of these aren't available on every spell list. Although I think a lot of them are arcane spells. So that spell is not particularly good for arcane spellcasters because they already have access to a lot of these spells. But for everyone else, expanding your tradition's spell list is always good. Especially for divine spellcasters. Divine spellcasters need all of the cool spellcasting stuff they can get. What could have been is an interesting spell, or not spell. It's a meta magic feat that's a free action. So, basically, before you cast a summon spell, you can summon yourself from a different timeline. So instead of summoning a troll, you summon yourself as a troll from a different timeline where you are a troll. It uses basically the same stat block as you do. However, things that you are good at, it is also good at because it's you. So if you are trained in a skill, whenever it uses that skill, it gets a +1 bonus. If it gets a +2 if you're an expert, +3 if you're a master, +4 if you're legendary. And it also takes a -2 penalty on things that you're untrained in. This is pretty good. This is basically, if you are summoning a creature that it wants to use those skills ready, giving them a huge bonus to those rolls is good. If you're not planning on using those skills, it's still just really funny. Oh yes, I will be summoning, I don't know, a snake. That's me. Don't question how me and this snake look very similar to each other. Now, what I would totally allow is I would totally allow a time mage that takes this feat that is also a summoner for their Eidolon to just be them. Because I think that would be so funny. It would be very strong, but very funny. Regardless, that doesn't work rules as written, but I think it would be funny. So, Into the Future is a metamagic feat. If your next action would be to cast a spell that takes 1 or 2 actions to cast, it instead happens 1 round later. So, this still provokes attacks of opportunities whenever you cast. You still have to have line of effect, both whenever you cast it and whenever it actually comes into effect. But, so let's say, this is very good in some situations, and not very good in others. As an example of when it's very good, you could shout out a code word, then cast a fireball. That code word means that you just cast a fireball to your allies, meaning that they can get out of dodge so they don't get hit by your fireball or all of your other really dangerous evocation spells. Or you could delay casting a spell so an ally can then, I don't know, say, demoralize someone. So if you're going to be casting slow on an individual, you can then delay the consequences, so then your ally can then intimidate them to reduce their will save. It's situational, but hey, it's fun. Purge Moments, once per hour for 3 actions. You get 5 rounds of time. No one, including you, can remotely act. You just stop time, and you can't do anything. You don't even perceive what happens during this time. However, negative effects, afflictions, positive effects, spell durations, persistent damage, all of those happen at the same time. So you can use Purge Moments and then get 5 flat checks against persistent damage, but also take 5 instances of that persistent damage. Apparently, you still age while doing this, so you can still die of old age if you use this too much. But realistically, once an hour, getting 30 seconds isn't going to age you all that much faster. Let's be real here. An additional 30 seconds to each hour isn't huge in terms of the lifespan of the average human. the pinnacle of the Time Mage archetype is Timeline Splitting Spell. So once per day for 3 actions, you cast 2 different spells that each take 1 or 2 actions to cast. You can't just cast 2 of the same spell that are tie-in differently. You have to expend resources for both of these spells and determine the results for both of them. So you roll attack rolls, you roll saving throws, damage, and all the other dice rolls. And then you choose which one actually happens. So you can cast Disintegrate and Slow. And then you say, oh, well, I missed on my Disintegrate spell, so I'm going to pick the timeline where the Slow worked. Now, you still use up the spell slots, but you choose which spell ends up working, and you can basically just... I don't know which spell I want to use, so I'll use both, and then pick which one I actually want to use based on the success. It's a really fun ability. There's a lot of spells that are kind of gambles on whether or not someone will roll bad, so you can use Timeline Splitting Spell to use a safe option and a more risky option. And now we have the Chrono Skimmer archetype, which is the weird one. Time Mage is just all about time magic. It's confusing because it's time related, but the Chrono Skimmer is more of like, you want to play Tracer. So the Chrono Skimmer is, you're partially stuck in time, you're partially not stuck in time, and you can manipulate it. So whenever you roll initiative, the basic ability is you can either choose to do nothing, you can stabilize your time stream, or destabilize it. If you stabilize your time stream, you don't roll initiative. You just get an initiative result equal to 10 plus your modifier. If you choose to destabilize your timeline, you have a 50% chance of your initiative being equal to 19 plus your initiative modifier. And on a failure, so 50% chance, that your initiative is equal to 1 plus your initiative modifier. And both of these are fortune effects. Also, if your initiative result is tied with anyone, you go first. And any DC that is required for any other ability is equal to your class DC or spell DC. And it's called your Chrono Skimmer DC. Now, okay, if you have a good perception, or a good just initiative modifier, stabilizing is a good idea. But a 50-50 for winning initiative is good. Okay, I'm not gonna lie, I've only read these first 2 feats here. I haven't read the rest of the archetype, and I'm already liking it. So, turn back the clock once per day. Whenever you fail a skill check or saving throw but not critically fail, you spend a reaction and you re-roll the check with a +1 circumstance bonus, and you have to take the new result. That's just nice. It's a reaction re-roll. There are a couple of other ways that you can get something like that, something like Cat's Luck, Halfling Luck, stuff like that. They're all very good. Guide the Timeline is an action that you can take once a day at level 6. You know the result that you want, and you nudge the timeline to get there. You choose an ally or a foe. If you choose an ally, the next time within the next round that the ally takes an attack roll skill check, they roll twice to take the better. If you choose a foe, the next time that they make an attack roll or skill check, they roll twice to take the worst. Unless they have to succeed at a will save. And you can use this once a round, or not once a round, once a day. So, you know what? I would really like for my fighter friend to crit here. So I'm going to make sure they gets a much better chance of doing so, so I'm going to give him a chance to roll twice and take the better to do it. That's very strong. Also, there's no range for this, you just have to see them. So that's nice. If you're at the back of a party, you can still, like, ping the guy in front who's 60 feet away from you. Or any enemy who's trying to run away, or who's, like, 100 feet away from you. Reversing Charge is 2 actions. You stride up to your speed. If you're in movement within melee reach of at least 1 enemy, you make a strike against them. You then teleport back to the square where you began Snapback Charge. Oh, they changed the name of this, didn't they? It used to be called Snapback Charge, but then they changed it to Reversing Charge. And you can use this for other types of movement. This is really nice if you don't want to be next to the big scary monster. You can spend an action to move up, hit them, and then you're not there anymore. This is literally Tracer. I wish you could use it for ranged attacks though. So you could run out of cover, shoot someone, and then you're back in cover. Superimpose time duplicates. Once per hour for one action. You call other versions of yourself to aid you in combat. So until your next turn, you get flanking for you against all enemies within your reach, because you're everywhere. Shadow Clone no Jutsu. Flanking with your time duplicates is exactly the same as flanking with an ally, and is subject to all effects like all-around vision and deny advantage. So if you're a rogue, this is very good, especially if you don't have flanking buddies who always try to set up flanks for you. Borrow Time is a level 10 feat. Once per minute as a free action whenever your turn begins, you can reach out and make use of time that isn't there yet. So you become quickened that you can only use to step, stride, or strike. You can use this immediately, and you can use it on this turn. At the end of the turn, you become stun 1. So basically, you trade an action from your next turn to get one this turn. Pretty basic, and very good. Sometimes you just need to make an additional attack on a turn, or you need an additional stride to actually be able to do everything that you need to do that turn. Okay, so combat premonition. So whenever you roll initiative, instead of stabilizing or destabilizing your time stream, you can grant your allies a flash of insight into their futures. So you select 2 allies. Those allies roll their initiative twice and take the better result. And you roll your initiative twice and take the worst result. The two effects are tied together. If you would avoid the misfortune effect, then your allies would negate their fortune effect. So a lot of the time, it's not as important that you go first as much as it is that someone in the party goes first. Combat Premonition allows for you to make sure, probably, that someone in your party is going to go first before the other characters. Okay, so Escape Timeline. As a free action, once per day whenever your turn would begin, you step outside of time. Your physical form stops existing momentarily, and you can't be targeted by anything until the start of your next turn. You simply don't exist. Your turn ends immediately, as soon as it begins, advancing 1 round for all timed durations and effects, like, conditions and afflictions. I did miss Steal Time. I'll come back to it in a second. So basically, you skip 1 round forward. And at the start of your next turn, you re-enter at the same space where you were before, and maybe over 1 if that space is now full. So this is just a good, oh fuck, oh no, get out of dodge. I'm gonna take cover, but the best cover possible, which is I'm just not gonna exist. Now Steal Time, which I did miss. Once per hour for 2 actions. So you reach forward into another creature's timeline and alter their flow of time. So select the creature. That creature gets a fortitude. Oh! Okay, Steal Time is probably the best spell, or best feat in this whole archetype, because it just allows for you to cast slow once an hour, but with a fortitude save instead of a will save. Slow is no joke one of the best debuff spells in the entire game. So being able to cast it once an hour is so good. And I mean, yeah, it's not as good because it's literally just the slow spell. Because slow is also a fortitude save. Yeah, no, that's absurd. That's probably one of the best feats I've ever seen in an archetype. Yeah, that's fucking stupid. Oh my god, that's good. It just, you cast slow once an hour. Oh my god. Okay, so space-time shift. Once per 10 minutes as a free action whenever your turn would begin, you travel a bit into the future. So your strides are augmented until the end of your turn, allowing you to instantly teleport to any point you could reach with your stride instead of traversing it normally. These do have the teleport trait, but they don't trigger reactions. You can also augment, burrow, climb, fly, or swim. So if you want to teleport around the battlefield, or want to teleport through doors, or through locked doors, or not locked doors, like prison bars, you can just do that. Well, actually, no. You would have to be able to get to there normally, so you can't go through obstacles. But if you need to get around someone who has, say, an attack of opportunity, this is very good. Also, it's just really funny. This is literally Tracer. So reset the past. Once read as a free action, select one of your Chrono Skimmer feats that has a frequency of once per day, or something that is more frequent that you've already used. You can use that feat again as if you haven't already used it yet. So what I'm hearing here is that you use Steal Time on someone and they save on their saving throw. So the next turn, you reset the past and then just steal their time again. So then you can just cast Slow twice. What the fuck is Steal Time? Who thought that was a good idea? I love it, but that's nuts. Okay. Yeah, this archetype is justified in being rare, because it's probably the strongest archetype I've seen in the book so far. But that is, I believe, it's not everything from the Temporal Anomalies section of the book, because we still have the Time Oracle mystery, which I've heard a couple of things about. It's interesting. So you're cursed with a somewhat understanding of time, or just understanding it differently. So trying to figure out where the mechanics start. So time passes more swiftly for you than it does for other people around you. So the mystery benefit is that you get a +10 status bonus to your speed. Oh, so basically get the monk bonus to your speed, but at earlier levels. And your disjointed movement makes it harder for creatures to hit you. You gain a bonus against your AC against reactions. Okay, that's fun. Like, honestly, that's really cool. Getting a huge movement speed bonus is great on literally every single character. So you become trained in occultism, you get time sense. We talked about that like 20 minutes ago. Your revelation spells are Temporal Distortion, Time Skip, and Manifold Lives. Let's talk about the curse first, so we can compare how good the cantrips are whenever we get there to how bad the curse is. So you get minor day-to-day changes to your age, like maybe a little bit of gray hair earlier, or occasional after images that slightly trail behind your movement. So minor curse, you become enfeebled 1, and in addition you take a -2 penalty to saving throws against effects that would make you fatigued or slowed. Enfeebled 1 doesn't matter a huge amount for a spellcaster. The penalty on saving throws sucks, but that is only if your enemies actually know that you have that specific weakness. If your party doesn't know that you have that specific, if your enemies don't know that you have that specific weakness, then it's not that bad, because they're not going to then go out of their way to target you with fatigue or slowing effects. So that's not bad at all for minor curse. Moderate curse. The value of your enfeebled condition increases to 2, and the penalty increases to -3. Your status bonus to AC against attacks made against you from your actions increases to +2. And also, spells affecting you last less time. Their duration is reduced by half. Okay, so even positive spells don't last on you for nearly as long. And finally, all non-permanent conditions affecting you have a duration measured in rounds, minutes, or hours. Have the durations reduced by half to a minimum of 1 round. Okay, that's really weird. So you basically cut the duration of everything in half. I wonder if that means that you have to make saves against poisons, because obviously afflictions have their maximum duration, onset time, and time for each stage reduced by half. Oh yeah, no, that means you would have to make your saving throws against a poison twice a round instead of once a round if the stage only lasts 1 round. This can be really useful for like trying to time out things out of combat, or oh no, someone cast slow on me. Well, instead of lasting a minute, it only lasts 5 rounds. But it also affects all of your own buff spells. So that is interesting. I'm certain that there are ways to make use of that and not have it just be a pure downside. I'm just not familiar enough with the Oracle. So now let's talk about the Major Curse. So you're so out of sync with time that it's hard for you to act. But when you do, you're really fast. So you're slowed 1. Oh, fuck. Enfeebled condition is 3, and the penalty for minor curse is -4. You get a +4 bonus to initiative rolls. Okay. Whenever you move, you're concealed so long as you're moving until the start of your next turn. As normal, you can't try and stealth with this. And also, your bonus against attacks made from your curse is +4. Oh, the slowed condition is so bad. And because it's from your curse, like casting haste on yourself doesn't counteract it, because you can't counteract a curse, like an Oracle curse effect. This is really interesting. I am not familiar enough with Oracles, I think, to say whether or not, like, all of the Oracle, like, major curse effects are debilitating. So I'm not that surprised. But slowed 1 is especially bad. Well, but we should compare them to the Revelation spells. So, Temporal Distortion. 1 action verbal spell, or somatic verbal spell. Roll a d4. On a 1, the foe becomes clumsy. On a 2, they're enfeebled. On a 3, they're stupefied. On a 4, you choose. And it's clumsy 1 if they fail, and like the condition is okay, so you have the duration but triple the value if they critically fail. That's honestly really good, because it means you have a 50% chance of applying the one that you want, and none of the other ones are bad except for enfeebled on things that don't use strength. Yeah, I mean, that's just a good level 1 debuff focus spell. Time skip. 1 action somatics. You cast it on another person other than you. They're quick until the next turn. That they can only use to step, stride, or strike. And then, oh, okay. Time skip is amazing. Because you can make other people... It's basically a very vanilla version of haste. Because you can just give people additional attacks every turn. You still have to deal with MAP, but that's really good. And it's also really nice for like, oh, round 1, time skip on everyone. You can now get additional stride to move into position. That's just a very good general use, very, very flexible focus spell. Finally, Manifold Lives. 2 actions. Okay, you cast the creature's mind back through time, forcing them to take other paths and make other choices, experiencing countless alternate lives in an instant. And, okay. this is just existential crisis, the spell. Like, have you ever thought about what it would really be like if you like really devoted yourself to studying and all of that whenever you were in high school, or all of the other options that you could have taken throughout your life and never had the chance to fulfill? And then just doing that in combat. Okay, that's fun. So they take 66 mental damage and the will save. Half damage on a success, but they're stupefied 2 for a round. Stupefied 2 on a success? Okay, that's good. If they fail, they take full damage or stupefied 2 for a minute. Oh my god. Stupefied 2 is so bad to put on a spellcaster. While affected, they must attempt another save at the start of their turn. On a failure, they're slowed 1 as they sob uncontrollably. Oh, this is a cruel spell. I love it. And they, on the critical failure, they take double damage, and for 1 minute, they're stupefied 4 and slowed 1. Oh my god. This is an amazing spell. And also, of course, the damage increases by 1 for every level. That's really good. That is an amazing debuff spell, especially on spellcasters, because they're going to be affected by the slowed by a massive amount. And I believe that we're going to have time to cover one more archetype. I think someone pointed out, I'm not all that familiar actually with a lot of the Oracle stuff. I'm familiar with some Oracle abilities, but in general, I am very much a casting guy who hasn't focused all that much on Oracles. But I think that someone pointed out an ability or a way that you can use Moonlight Bridge, which is, it doesn't technically have to be used as a bridge. You can use it as a 45-degree angle wall of force. So you can close off a passageway with a 45-degree angle Moonlight Bridge going up to the ceiling if you need to block something off, but it's still very situational. But yeah, I don't really know why. The third ones are more specific. But regardless, we have time for one more archetype. And so, because we don't have time to cover Psychic Duels, and I talked about the Sleepwalker yesterday, let's talk about the Mindsmith, which is actually I know everything about this archetype because they showed off a picture of the entire archetype at PaizoCon. So I'm like halfway through writing a script on this archetype and talking about it. So this should hopefully be pretty easy, and I love this thing. So the Mindsmith takes inspiration from the Gloomblade archetype for fighters in Pathfinder 20, which is basically you make weapons. So you can make all different types of weapons to fit exactly the type of weapon that you need at the moment. So instead of making them out of shadow, and like the Gloomblade did in 20, instead you make them out of your mind. So this is a very fun archetype that isn't even uncommon. You can take this with basically any martial character. And yes, this is a martial character archetype. So you gain a weapon called a mind weapon, and this is a martial melee weapon. The shape of it is up to you, but there are 4 different forms that your mind weapon can take. It can be a one-handed weapon that does 1d4 damage and has agile and finesse, a two-handed weapon that has finesse and does 1d6 damage, a one-handed weapon that does 1d8 damage, and a two-handed weapon that deals a d10 damage and has reach. Now, each day during your daily prep, you can choose between bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing. If it's bludgeoning, it's in the club weapon group. If it's piercing, it's in the spear weapon group. And if it's slashing, it's a sword. Your mind weapon is an extension of you. If someone tries to break your mind weapon, you take damage equal to what they rolled, but it's mental damage instead of physical. Also, if you're disarmed, it just dematerializes. You can manifest your mind weapon into any of these 4 forms as a single action. So if you decide, okay, I want the reach version, you spend an action, you make the reach version. And then if you think, oh no, I actually want it to be the one-handed one that deals a d8 damage because I need a free hand now. You can drop the two-handed version. It then dematerializes because it's no longer in your hand. And then you spend that action and you manifest it as the one-handed d8 version. So you can pick and choose between the 4 different options to really get what you want. And also that means that really if you want to get the most out of this archetype, you want to be strength-based. So you can actually use these 2 with full accuracy because they don't have the finesse trait. Also, you might be wondering, how on earth are you supposed to be putting runes on this? Because it's your brain stabbing people. So you can't exactly tattoo that's like on your brain. But that's because you have a keepsake, which is a light bulk object, like a bracelet or something that you keep on you, that then you can inscribe weapon runes onto that. So basically, you can, like, if you have a +1 striking weapon, a +1 striking keepsake, it applies to all of these 4 options, no matter which one you create. Also, you can only make one of these at a time, so you can't dual hand the 1d6 version with the 1d4 version. Okay, so now we move on to all the other feats. Of which there are quite a few. So Malleable Movement is a skill feat. I believe it's the only skill feat in the entire archetype. It is, I just checked. As a free action, or you have to be an expert at athletics, which you can't really at level 2 unless you're a rogue. But whenever you leap, as a free action, you can shift your weapon to something like a pole, a climbing hook, or something else to help you leap. So this just adds a flat 5 extra feet to the distance you're able to jump. And as normal, you can't increase your distance of your leap beyond your speed. If you know you're going to be jumping around a bunch, like if you have quick jump or wall jump or cloud jump, this is nice. It's just a flat 5-foot increase. Nothing too special, but it's a level 2 skill feat. It's not going to be super special. Ghost Blade is what actually you take once per hour, which just gives your mind weapon the Ghost Touch property rune for a minute, because it's made out of mind. It can hit ghosts. Ghosts are pretty much just souls. Your mind is pretty much your soul. If you know that you're going to be fighting a lot of ghosts in a campaign, this is very, very worth it, because it means you don't have to buy a Ghost Touch rune, which means you can take a different property rune that might be a bit more useful. Also, you're almost always going to have your Ghost Touch weapon on you, because, again, it's your brain. You can always make your mind weapon. So just the tool is surprisingly not a skill feat, but you can shift around your weapon to form a simple tool, like a shovel or a crowbar. You can't replicate entire toolkits, but if it's one item, you can probably make it. You can get really creative with this if your GM allows you to, because there are all types of simple tools that are very useful for very specific situations. A fun one is wrenches, because depending on how people construct their doors, or like a screwdriver or something, depending on how things are constructed, you might just be able to start taking things apart. Mental Forge is a ability that helps you start being a bit more, add some personalization to your weapons. So you morph your, that's the wrong one. So you start applying additional traits to your weapons. You choose 2 of the following list: grapple, modular for bludgeoning, piercing, or slashing, non-lethal, shove, or trip. Once chosen, you can't change these unless you spend a week retraining them. So basically, you can get bonuses to shove or trip or grapple. You can be flexible in what damage you can do, or do non-lethal damage. You can just pick which ones you like. If you are going into athletics, you can save a bit of money, so you don't need to get a item that boosts athletics if you just are going to be tripping, because then you can just put the trip weapon onto your weapon, or trip trait onto your weapon. It's not super fancy, but it's fun. Between Ghostblade, Just the Tool, and Mental Forge is very much the general, this is just a good feat for every campaign. Just the Tool is useful if you're wanting to try and weaponize creativity, and Ghostblade is good for campaigns where you fight a lot of ghosts. Take Ghostblade and the Abomination Vaults. Thank me later. So Mind Shards is a fun ability where you swing your weapon, and your mind weapon explodes, dealing damage that shreds the mind of everyone in a 15-foot cone. This deals 3d6 mental damage. You get a basic will save, and at level 7, and then every 2 levels after level 7, it increases by 1d6 damage. So basically, it's just a nice 2-action whap. You deal damage in an area. You can only use it once a minute, but it's still just good AoE damage, which this is a martial archetype. Or generally, martial characters are going to be the one who take it because they're the one who generally hit people with weapons. So martials don't have AoE abilities. Yeah, you can't use it much and doesn't do much damage, but at least it's an AoE ability. Malleable Mental Forge is an upgrade to Mental Forge. So during your daily preparation, you can choose to swap around which traits you want to use, rather than having to spend a week to swap one trait. Which means that if you want to grapple one day and then trip the next, you can do that. If you know you're going to be trying to take someone alive, you can grab the non-lethal trait. It's pretty nice. Mind Projectiles is a very good feat. So while you have your weapon out, you can make ranged mind weapon strikes, which are ranged strikes with a maximum range of 30 feet that deal 1d6 points of the same type as your mind weapon. So if it's slashing, you do slashing damage at range. All the benefits from your mind weapon runes apply so long as they can actually be applied to a ranged weapon. So this just means, okay, you have a two-handed 1d10 reach weapon. You can also point it at someone and shoot out a beam at someone to hurt their head or like to pierce them. And yes, there are going to be so many Mindsmith Maguses. I was considering, and I'm still kind of considering, playing a Thaumaturge with the Mindsmith archetype, who their keepsake is a pin, and they make giant pins that they fight people with because the pin is mightier than the sword. And that's the reason why it's effective, because they're a Thaumaturge and they like to use sayings. It's really stupid, but it's just a really fun archetype. This is the kind of archetype that they put out, and I know that they're releasing this because people are gonna eat this shit up, because this is exactly the kind of fantasy that people like to play. But god damn it, I love it. I'm one of those people, man. I'm not gonna complain. So this is just an easy way to get ranged attacks without having to invest runes into a ranged weapon. You can just invest runes into one weapon that's both melee and ranged. Runic Mindsmithing is basically during daily preparation, you choose one rune from the following list: Corrosive, Disrupting, Flaming, Frost, Shock, and Thundering. And then you can choose to put that rune onto your mind weapon until your next daily prep. This does count towards the maximum limit of your runes as normal, meaning that at level 10 you're probably only going to be able to have one or maybe two runes at a single time on your weapon, so it's pretty good. I kind of wish that maybe it was like a one action thing that you can use once a day to then make your mind weapon light on fire, but it didn't count towards your maximum limit of runes. But still, it's pretty good. It can definitely save you some money, and you can put that money towards other places. So maybe you want a non-lethal weapon, or you want, I don't know, a holy weapon. You can save up the money that you save from runic mindsmithing to just put into other things. This will just save you some money. Admittedly, spending a feat to save money maybe isn't the best, but it's not necessarily bad, especially because if you know you're going to be fighting a bunch of fire elementals, you can grab the frost rune. And if you grab the flaming rune on a normal weapon, you're kind of screwed if you're fighting flame elementals. Metallic Envisionment is kind of fun. So basically, you choose between cold iron or silver. All of your mind weapon strikes are treated as if it were that specific type of metal. I wish that you could choose which metal it counts as on a daily basis. As it is, both of those are good options. But if you're fighting devils or werewolves, silver is good. If you're fighting a bunch of fae and demons, then cold iron is good. It depends a lot on what your campaign is. In some campaigns, it doesn't matter what metal your weapons are made out of. In some, it matters a lot. Finally, Advanced Runic Mindsmithing. This is level 16 feet. Yeah, this is pretty much just Erz's re-equipability. Except it's not weapons, or it's not armor. They're going to make an armor version of this at some point. I can just feel it. So basically, Advanced Runic Mindsmithing gives you additional options whenever you're picking which runes to put onto your weapon. I think it would make sense if Mindsmithing can do that, but a lot of the common runes that you would want to put on your weapons are already on the list. These are just the basic ones that increase your damage. Those are generally the ones that you want. So I would rather just not... If I'm going to predominantly be using my mind weapon already, I would just rather get the runes from a feat and then save the money elsewhere. But that's just me. I don't necessarily know if that's the better thing to do. And also because it is a constant effect. So if you have, let's say you have a +1 potency rune, and then you have, I don't know, what's the rune that, it is a rune that, whenever you crit someone, they become frightened 1. If you have that onto your keepsake, but then you pick, I don't know, the flaming rune from runic mindsmithing, you just wouldn't get the rune that frightens people, because constantly you have a flaming rune which then would suppress the rune that frightens people. So I just think that if you have runic mindsmithing, you just don't really want to have any other runes, or you at least want to have one blank spot, one blank property rune. So advanced runic mindsmithing, you can advance etch the greater forms of any runes. So basically you can add greater flaming, greater frost, greater shock, which allows you to bypass damage resistance, which is amazing because by level 16 energy resistance is absolutely everywhere. You also can choose anarchic, axiomatic, holy, and unholy runes, which are very good if you're fighting outsiders, or specifically aligned outsiders, like demons, angels, aeons, and Azad. No, not Azadas. Oh, I'm forgetting the chaotic neutral aligned outsider. Oh, that's bothering me. Regardless, once per day you can spend 10 minutes to swap which one of the ones you're getting from Rune Mindsmith to another list of the same type. And once the swap is made, that second rune remains on the weapon until your next daily prep. one thing that I really wish that you could get from this is that you could apply more than one rune. Because by level 16, you might have you're going to have a +2 weapon. Depending on how much gold you have, you might have a +3. I wish that you could put 2 runes from runic mindsmithing instead of just 1. So you could just, Proteans, that's it. I've hardly fought any Proteans in Pathfinder, so, the name slipped. It's almost always the evil ones that you fight. I just wish that you could have, like, 2 property runes once you got advanced runic mindsmithing, or maybe 3, once you had a +3 potency weapon. Just so you didn't have to buy property runes anymore. Because honestly, saving money on a one-time purchase from a feat isn't that strong. Regardless, though, that is everything, and I am gonna have to go because I have a Pathfinder game in like 20 minutes. The only thing that I believe I haven't covered is this one archetype here. Because to talk about this archetype, we have to talk about Psychic Duels, which is like 2.5 pages, and I don't have the time for that. So, unfortunately, what order should you prioritize? Dark Archive, Secrets of Magic, Book of the Dead, Mythic Creatures, and Knights of Lastfall. It depends on your campaign and what sort of story you want to tell. Again, I'm not really a GM, so I am more analyzing these from the perspective of a player than I am from someone who GMs. But if you're planning on running a campaign where you really want to run undead, Book of the Dead is amazing. If you want to do a weird, creepy, psychic book, Dark Archive is really, really, really good. Dark Archive also comes with 8 mini adventures, so that's something to keep in mind. I believe Knights of Lastfall. Which one would you wish for first? I'm just a sucker for undead. If I end up running a campaign at some point, it's gonna be filled with undead. So I would personally prefer Book of the Dead because it just gives access to a bunch of really fun undead lore. Which one would I wish for first? Dark Archive, because it has 2 classes in it. It's the one that has the most material for the average Pathfinder game, because the Book of the Dead has a lot of archetypes. And a lot of campaigns, you're not gonna be a skeleton. You're not gonna be a ghoul. But you can absolutely be a Mindsmith in almost every Pathfinder game under the sun. So it's more general use. Also, Knights of Lastfall is a Lost Omens book, so it has a lot more lore, but less actual mechanical options. But I do have to go. So I hope that you've all enjoyed these streams. This is going to be the last stream that I do covering the Dark Archive, because if I did another one, I'd be talking about this, and also the Sleepwalker, which I put out a video on already. So I don't necessarily feel like I need a stream to cover 2 archetypes. But I guess, yeah. Until I see you guys next, live a wonderful life.